Oh, you know what? I'm recording, but yeah, a lot of people read the book and it really makes sense. The science makes sense, but it's so simple, right? The how I present this as like a bone structure for an emotional eating program. There's no detail. So when you go and watch my YouTube videos on my weight loss apocalypse YouTube videos, you all of a sudden you're hearing it kind of in practice, and you get to hear like, wow, this is actually so much bigger than it was presented in the book.
Yeah.
Did you find that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is as simple, right? It is as simple as what I presented in the book. It's like, okay, so let's just start with the foundation. If you're not hungry, there's no physical need for food. If you are hungry, there is a physical need for food. And the brain has a mental need, right? The brain has a neural need for pleasure. So there's a reason why we crave food. There's a reason why we like food. And we shouldn't feel bad about it. The problem occurs, right, when you live in this culture who has a system where we use food as a cultural means to entertain, to celebrate, to show our love for each other. It's kind of something that this culture uses as a consumer entitlement.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and but there's more to it than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the other part of this that you're dealing with, which is how our culture worships the thin ideal body. And for men, it's the muscular body, right? So you have the cultural belief that food is a part of our expression. It's a part of our love. It's a part of our celebration. It's a part of everything emotionally. And then the other side of it is, but you have to be skinny. You need to be thin in order to be valuable. Right?
It's torture.
It is torture. And I find what I find so fascinating is that, every time I work with someone, because we all live in the same culture and we're all raised with the same indoctrinated belief systems, right? So some people believe that money and buying power and living the good life and having the car and the boat and the house and the cabin and having the right phone, having the right shoes, having all that stuff makes you a more valuable person. Other people subscribe to being in the right religion makes you a valuable person. And then another huge cultural belief system is the body image system, right? Having the ideal body is what will make you culturally more acceptable, right? I can just assume that you follow and ascribe to the belief structure in our culture of ideal body image.
I didn't hear the last. I heard the.
I said I'm going to make an assumption and tell me if I'm right or wrong that you follow and have believed in the cultural system that promotes an ideal body as a way to be valued in our country.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, yeah. So here's what I want you to understand, that because it is a socially modeled and taught system, you have very predictable psychological consequences that are similar to everybody else that ascribes to that system. Does that make sense what I just said?
Definitely. Oh yeah.
So it's like saying, okay, well, we can assume that if you're a religious zealot, there are psychological similarities that you have to other religious zealots, right?
Yeah.
Similar to, people who believe in buying power makes them valuable. They also have similar psychological consequences as other people who are in that same belief system. So we can assume, right, that based on the fact that if you have you're following and ascribing to if I have the ideal body, I will feel better about myself. I will feel accomplished, right? What else would it feel? What are the other feelings that you've attached to that thin ideal body?
Acceptance for myself.
Acceptance.
Yeah, happiness.
Oh, for sure, right? Like that thin body makes people happier.
Yeah, I feel sexier. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it keeps on going, right? All those emotions, right? Those are all perceptions. Don't you think that how someone feels about themselves sexually is a very self-perception issue? That's a personal, how you perceive yourself sexually has nothing to do with like ideology around how you look. It has to do with how you feel inside.
Yeah.
Right? So, but people who follow the ideal body cultural model, they truly have these beliefs that, well, if you have this ideal body, you will have cultural acceptance, you will have approval from your family and friends, you will be more powerful in our own society, and we'll all look up to you, right? Like you're going to be put on a pedestal. Like, how did you do it, right?
Right.
So when people sign up for a diet, no matter what it is, whether it's I'm doing low carb, I'm doing no sugar, I'm doing paleo, I'm going to do the HCG protocol, I'm going to go Weight Watchers, most people are only doing it because of what the image promises emotionally. Wouldn't you agree? Otherwise, would it be worth it to you to get rid of your favorite foods?
Right, otherwise, yeah, there has to be a reason.
Well, of course, right? There's this reward that's dangled in front of you. Every time you look at a diet, there's always this like promise of, psychological freedom. And how many times have you lost and gained weight?
Couple of times. This last time has been 17 years since my last pregnancy. I have not been able to lose it. Just not able.
Okay, so how long did you try to lose it, though?
Over the 17 years, off and on.
Okay.
Many times.
Okay.
I'm sick of it.
Got it. Okay, so when I said to you how much have you dieted, you said a couple times. Well, you mean for...
Well, that's how many times I've lost it. I've actually lost it.
Got it. However, but your efforts to lose it have been... Would you say you've pretty much dedicated good 17 years of your life to aspiring to that body image? At least hoping for it, at least like worshiping it, right?
Right.
Got it. And I would assume that over a 17-year period of time, you've done a lot of different things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they all create the same promise, right? They all have this like illusion that this is the one thing you need. We have the secrets, right? We can tell you which foods you should never eat again, right?
Right.
And because weight loss will provide you, oh my gosh, all of this cultural like worship, right? You're going to attain all of this amazingness psychologically and emotionally. Letting go of those foods will be worth it, right?
Right.
Does that sound familiar? Has it ever really been worth it?
Let's see. No, well, not the last 17 years. I haven't attained it.
I haven't attained it. And would you say that everything you've tried thus far is what you really would want to do in your like normal way of eating?
Oh, no.
No, it's not. So let me ask this question. Let's just use like a more modern food lifestyle that is popular right now.
Popular.
Right this moment. Have you heard of paleo?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So if there was no promise of weight loss, would you want to put that effort into eating that way?
There's no promise of weight loss. Maybe, because it has a little more fat involved. one I did was the vegetarian. Oh my God, no way. That's a big no.
Okay, so that didn't work for you. So I guess I'm going to ask the question again, and I want you to think about it. Okay, so if there was no illusion of weight loss grandeur, would you voluntarily enlist in a diet?
Oh, no.
Okay, that was basically what I'm saying. Okay, so is that what you want to do? Is dieting something you actually like to do?
No, it's not.
Okay, so I want you to think about that.
Yeah.
You do not like to diet. How many human beings like to diet?
I don't know very many.
There are a select few. They get control out of it. They like the grandeur of saying my diet's better than yours, right? There is some religious cult diet following, right? However, just look at the culture that we live in that is full of like the food culture, right? The food entitlement, the food system that we feel is an entitlement for this culture. So what you're doing basically is you're leaving the norms of the food culture we live in temporarily, and you're imposing this like limitation only because you are assuming that you're going to attain the ideal body for the reason of feeling like you're more valuable as a person. Did I describe that correctly?
Yeah, that is a good big part of it.
It is for everybody that's in it.
It's already changed for me. Since I've read your book and watched the YouTube videos.
Oh, since watching my videos? Well, part of this process is being aware that you have been culturally, would you say that you've been culturally, would you say that you've been brainwashed in any way to feel that unless you have that ideal body, you have no worth?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay, so what would happen to, hold on, before I move forward. So because of that, because you have this burned in your brain belief that you are not valuable, you are less important, you are vulnerable to being judged, culture will not see you as accomplished yet unless you have that thin body. Would you say because of that you have issues with food as a byproduct? Yeah, I would agree. So does everybody else that falls into this system. So what would happen to those issues with food if you left that cultural system? If you decided this is really messed up, this isn't something we should be teaching our young children. We should not be valued based on this body image. We should be valued on our, inherent human qualities. And I am leaving this system. What would then happen to your life with food?
I'm not sure what would happen to it.
Well, I mean, would you say that?
I would hope there'd be a lot less guilt and shame, I would hope.
Yes, that was exactly what, this is so damn predictable. You are correct. Less guilt and shame. Tell me how that guilt and shame affects your eating behavior.
Oh, it just makes me want to eat more and more to cover it up.
Well, you might as well because you suck, right? You're a big failure. So for now, you might as well eat it all because you're going to deprive yourself later when you try to lose the weight again.
Yeah.
What happens to that whole cycle of I got to be perfect to lose this weight because I want to accomplish this ideal, and then, but now I can't eat with the rest of the society. I can't enjoy good food, right? What happens to that if you choose to leave this cultural ideal, that model?
Oh, well, I think it's less to the corner.
Say that again?
I don't do that anymore. That gets picked the corner. I don't do that anymore.
It stops, right? So would you feel shame and guilt with food ever again?
No, I wouldn't like to, that's for sure.
Hey, get out. Get
I don't
out.
need a goal to get this, not to feel shame or guilt.
You wouldn't have the guilt and the shame. So here's the other thing. Would you feel deprived of that our culture of eating? Would you feel deprived? Would you deprive yourself from that? Or let me rephrase this. Would you feel deprived from, say that again?
I might sometimes, yeah.
Why would you?
Unless I, well, I feel bad for saying, so if I didn't care about it anymore, then no.
Okay, I was just about to say, hold on, you forgot. We're not in that system, so you wouldn't feel deprived. So tell me, if you never deprive yourself of food, and there's no shame and guilt, what do you think is going to happen to your overall, the amount of food you eat overall?
It would go down.
It would go down. Notice how you kind of know this stuff, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people actually believe that you need a control over you because you can't handle food. And if you eat good food, you're going to eat it all because you're a carnal mammal that has to have food if it tastes good until it's gone. How is it that does not make sense? Whereas, like I said, you give yourself complete freedom, no shame and no guilt, and I asked you, what's going to happen to your food consumption? You said, oh, well, it's going to go down. Would you agree that's because there's no presence of the perception of deprivation?
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah.
Totally. That perception of being deprived from our culture, don't you agree that those are the times that you justify, rationalize, entitle, and overconsume?
Yeah.
Agreed. And it's because you feel like, well, number one, I'm going to go back to this diet, which means I can't eat this way anymore. So I'm going to eat in preparation for that famine. And the other side of it is, so if I eat it, I have failed. So therefore, I might as well eat for the rest of the day because there's no hope for weight loss. And I might have already gained weight, so I might as well just keep on going. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, yeah, I've done that, I think, 1,000s of times.
Thousands of times.
These last 17 years, oh my gosh.
Do you realize how normal you are in that culture?
Yeah.
I want you to really think about how many people in the United States alone who have subscribed to the ideal body image culture. How many of those people are overeating?
Huge.
Oh, because of all that deprivation and shame and guilt. Agreed?
Yeah.
So you see how I'm like, look, this is normal for this kind of this subculture of our country. It's very predictable. The individual psychological consequences of that diet cult have created a very consistent social issue. And you're part of it. So when I write in Weight Loss Apocalypse, I'm talking about, look at all this gluttony, look at all of this life with food and how much more we're consuming. It is, in my personal observation and opinion, alongside a lot of, social science that's out there, that a lot of this overconsumption is compensating for how much we diet in this culture based on our paradigm of body idealism and the shame and the guilt and the aspiring to be that. We have direct consequences because of how high and unattainable the ideal is. If you look at the image in your head, the imagery in your mind of what it is that you need to attain the ideal, would you even think it's realistic?
No, probably not.
It's probably not. Now unless you're starving, maybe if you starve yourself or have an obsessive compulsive disorder, maybe then, do you think?
Yeah, probably could, but yeah, I can't do that.
Well, this is the other thing I think people are so unaware of. It's like, all those images you see, first of all, they've been, what you see in the media and what you see, the diet media, most of those images have been airbrushed. But more than that, what they don't tell you about those images is that those girls have eating disorders, that they're considered anorexic, or they're considered bulimic. They're exercise bulimics. They have obsessive compulsive disorders. They're obsessed with body image. That's all they think about. That's all they do. They have massive issues with depression, vulnerability, lack of self-worth. They never tell you any of that, do they?
No, they sure don't.
I know. Well, you're living it, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
17 years of it. You've been in that culture. How do you like it?
I don't.
And what's really crazy too is the media uses they use cognitively distorted fear-based propaganda as well in how they teach you. So what they'd say is, this food is fattening. How many articles have you read just with the heading of these 5 foods are fattening? How many times have you seen that?
Oh yeah, a lot, and on the computer a lot too.
Okay, that's very distorted, right? That's very distorted. You want to know why? Because they don't discuss the quantity of that food, that food might be fattening if you eat it all the time when you're not hungry in massive quantities. They don't talk about any of that. What you're just told is this food is fattening. So it's kind of this extreme in terms of how you're perceiving the food, as if when you eat a bite of it, all of a sudden you're getting fat. How many times have you thought that?
Oh yeah. Who knows?
This food is fattening. You read it, the propaganda, it's bad. So then when you have it, you feel, I'm gaining fat. Would you say that's cognitively distorting in your own head? Meaning that you at this point, because of how you're taught and how you're manipulated into that diet, you are now thinking that way. How they distort the information is how you are processing your behavior. So how the diet industry and the food cultures, how they market and how they manipulate through fear is, if you look at people who are in that culture, that's a representation of how their brains are working. Very all or nothing. They have distortions around, if I eat this, I'm immediately getting fat. There's no hope for weight loss today because I have to follow this program perfectly.
Yeah.
Do you recognize any of that? And can you see where that might have psychological consequences on your part? The shame and the guilt side?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that feeds...
Well, yeah, I'm doing it.
And that feeds the behavior of, I might as well eat it all. So most of your excessive eating, would you agree, most of it is based on the fact that you feel like you have failed a diet?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's no hope for accomplishing that ideal body today. So you might as well not worry about it, right?
Right.
Okay. So now you're now on the HCG protocol. And let me ask, are you monitoring your weight every day?
Not every day. I was at first until I, got to the portion where, you were recommending not do that. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. That way
that way I don't have to deal with it.
About my hunger stuff, huh?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, it's going to get hard the moment you want that food culturally and you're like, I'm feeling deprived. This is a diet.
Yeah.
You're going to want to see that scale because you're going to say, if I'm going to do this, right? We talked about this earlier. The only reason why you're imposing a diet is because you believe the end result will be rewarding enough. But in the presence of the cultural ideals around food consumption, when you're in that present and you have that desire, all of a sudden you feel deprived. All of a sudden you feel punished. All of a sudden you're like, the rewards that this...
Can't wait.
Yeah, well, all of a sudden this... You can't wait because the moment's now, right? Life is occurring in the presence of now. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, this diet isn't worth, like, the outcome of social acceptance isn't worth not allowing myself to be present with this social system, which is like, you've earned it, you've entitled it. This is part of our celebration. This is part of fun. This is part of how we entertain ourselves, right? So you have this conflict between, I want to lose weight so people will like me and I can be sexier and I can feel better about myself, and between, I want to be able to eat so that I can feel fun and I can feel rewarded and I can feel like I'm part of the celebration in this country, right?
Right.
So the problem is that the goal of social acceptance isn't even intrinsic. It's not even for you. It's to accommodate this cultural ideology that's not even rewarding enough. Right? It's like, I'm just following the plan. I gotta be thin. There's not enough intrinsic reward for you to modify your desires for the food as well. That's why you've probably sabotaged
Right.
for 17 years.
And then also, I didn't know how to get out of it. I was very much aware that I had, I traded one addiction for another. And so, that just doesn't really stop. I used to use tobacco, and that's when I started with the food.
Oh, for sure. I see that all the time. And it's usually because you're using tobacco socially. Like, it's like you're drinking and it's part of the social, it's like you have a camaraderie. Don't you agree? When you smoke cigarettes, there's a real camaraderie around other people that smoke, and the conversations. It's a very social system. It's socially rewarding, smoking is. Agreed?
Definitely, but it was also when you have a nicotine addiction too.
Oh, but you know what? The nicotine isn't as half as addicting as that social engagement. Yes, it's true.
Because I went from smoking to chewing tobacco. Okay. I don't break it anymore, and so, but I did that most of the time. But I'm not around people. Lots of people that I didn't do it.
Sure. Well, what is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for a distraction?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the distraction that is addictive. It's not the nicotine. You're looking for distraction. This is really important in your recovery, that you do not attach this idea that you're addicted to something, because you're not. It's an emotion that humans are way more intelligent than other mammals. We have far more going on. It is a logical, what you're doing is very logical. In the social sciences, this would be called a rational. This is rational. This is a rational theory, they call it. I think that's right. But anyways, it's a rational decision as you're doing it, even though it looks irrational on the outside. Don't you agree that you're logically making decisions about, well, if I'm not going to smoke and I don't want the lung issues, maybe I can use tobacco, chewing tobacco. But it ultimately comes down to feeling insecure and inadequate emotionally in specific environments. Am I right or wrong?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay.
It's trying to feel something to cover something to feel better.
Totally. So it has absolutely nothing to do with tobacco.
Well, I guess getting off of it is totally.
Oh my gosh. So now we're dealing with the skinny, which is because you're not eating and it's probably stimulating hormones and all that. So you're following, oh my goodness. So, and I get skinny. So you're using it as a diet. Are you still chewing tobacco?
Oh, no. I quit that. That's what I'm saying. I quit that 17 years ago. And that's when I went
to food.
Gaining weight.
Yep. Yep. And do you remember as you went to food going, you know what, I'm fine right now. At some point I'll just go on a diet and I can lose this.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I know. It's logical. There's so much logic.
It's never been a problem for me to lose weight before, so no big loop. No boy.
But here's the thing. You've never really dealt with the underlying insecurities emotionally.
Right.
So another thing, and then I'll close this video after this is like a half an hour long. is that what they found is people who are insecure and are seeking for external securities, you were probably raised under a lot of criticism and not a lot of independence. Chances are you were given rules that were very strict, and there was not very much leniency or grace around those rules. So you were never truly intrinsically guiding yourself in life. You were always using some external rules to do it for you. Does this sound familiar?
Yeah, but also it was really odd things too. My dad was he was very violent, and so it was a lot of fear.
Yes, a lot of fear, and he was probably highly critical.
He controls with fear, and he was violent and all that stuff. So yeah.
So you were never given a safe environment to struggle and to learn and have a learning curve. It was never very safe for you.
Say again, Sula.
I said you were raised in an environment where there was a lot of criticism. The violence is a sign of trying to control. The anger is a sign of lack of patience. And so there's not very much lenience. Are you hearing what I'm saying now? Like there's not very much lenience. Using fear is a very high indicator of what happens to your innate trust in your ability. You're just assume you suck. You can't handle it. And you're afraid of mistakes, right?
Right.
So instead of going into it and learning it and giving yourself grace and giving yourself lenience, what you're doing is you're saying, I'm just going to go ahead and distract myself. And then by omission, ask forgiveness, not permission type of thinking. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what you're going to need to develop, right? Because your behavior with your addictive kind of behavior, it's not so much about the addiction as much as it is, and the substances. It's really about being raised in an environment that didn't allow you to naturally progress and learn, which requires exploration. It requires independence. The ability to say, I'm going to give you a project and I want you to figure it out. And you're going to struggle, and that's okay. As you struggle, you're going to learn more. Unfortunately, people who are not raised with that type of lenience tend to lean towards controlling, manipulative types of parenting.
Yeah.
So the downside of it, right, of you not getting enough lenience as a child and enough independence and being manipulated through fear, which is what the diet industry does, is you are left to feel inadequate to handle probably stress, projects that you are not sure you can do. You probably don't enlist in anything that's outside of your scope of understanding because you're afraid of being criticized. And if you are handed these types of projects, you know what you do? You smoke, you chew tobacco, or you put food in your mouth.
Yeah.
A lot of fear of failures. Fear of failure is why a lot of people don't progress either, because they don't give themselves the lenience to figure something out through a natural learning curve. Does this make sense?
It does.
So we can say, you can look at your past behaviors with nicotine, alcohol, food, drugs, whatever it is, and you can say, well, every time I've needed them, it's because I felt insecure in a social environment, in a work environment, in a personal environment. I don't know if I can handle it, and I'm afraid of failure.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see how that might have been conditioned?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what would happen if you developed a sense of confidence in your ability to handle just life in general, the ups and downs of life? What do you think would happen to your needs to medicate through food or any other substance?
Oh, I think that would go away.
I do too. Of course it would. Because now you're dealing with the issue at hand, right?
Yeah.
So in this process with you as your guide, I am here to give you a very confident a secure environment for you. A secure environment that allows you grace to figure this out without feeling judged, I'm not going to give you a time constraint. You're not going to have tons of pressure. You don't have to be perfect. I'm not criticizing you. It's very, very important and essential for you to emotionally resolve the original issues that you actually are given the grace and the space and the confidence to start to develop your emotional ability to live, so that you don't have to lose weight to feel better about yourself. So you don't have to perform a certain way, that you're just living graciously and living like a human should, which is to explore, to create, to be curious, to be excited about something new, and to be drawn to new things and to want to figure things out. Those are human qualities that it's been squelched for you, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions right now about what I just said?
No, not at this point.
Does it sound about right for you?
Yeah, it sounds different than I thought it would be.
Well, there's a big...
That's good. It's a good thing, though. I like it. I just thought that I wasn't expecting to go quite this direction, and I also was aware that may happen.
Yeah,
I feel like there may be some things I'm not quite aware of. I know there's problems. I know kind of what's going on through my life, and I think that's some of the reasons why I've done this.
Well, I think a lot of times, don't you agree, we as individuals internalize things as if we are failures, like we just suck. No one ever considers like the environment that we weren't necessarily taught how to develop.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that you suck, it's that you weren't taught how to develop as a human emotionally. The other part of it is that we don't necessarily understand how our society works. I mean, we live in a society of structure. We have these very obvious cultural idealisms, right? And we have been conditioned to believe that we are not good human beings unless we get those things. Doesn't that sound just awful?
It does.
I know, and it is. And the people who live in it and don't necessarily take it on internally, they don't internalize those beliefs, they don't tend to have the same issues. There's so much study on the social sciences and the predictability of human behavior under those environments. And wouldn't you agree that we have a very huge culture around body idealism?
Oh yeah, it's big.
It's huge. And how much is predictable in that system? I mean, we both could sit here and say, how does it feel to you when you see a picture of the ideal? How do you feel about yourself?
Oh yeah, I hate
like
that.
crap.
Yeah, definitely.
And then what is the chances that you're going to be attracted to that diet system? It's very high. Who's putting out those pictures? The diet system. It's very self-defeating. It's just it's like you're stuck in a cage, right? You can't get out, because what you're doing to feel better about yourself is you're going to these ideals, and what the ideals are having you do are creating issues with food, which ultimately sucks you back into the idealism. It's just really sucky. So it's actually not that hard to get out, which is the great news. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to talk to you about that right now, but I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. The viewer's going to have to read it in my next book.
Yeah. All right.